Ready? All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. Mark Jeffries of BassZone.com here with the legend on day one at Lake Champlain, and we're going wide open this morning, Harold.
Absolutely, Mark. Beautiful day, a beautiful lake, folks, and a big lake, 245,000 acres. Our skeeter guy picked us up this morning. We ran 30, 40, 45 minutes way up north. We didn't go south. We didn't do that big south deal.
No, not today.
Went way up north and immediately got in some of the best fishermen out there. Aaron Martin, Jeff Crete, Marty Stone, all these guys in one big area working largemouth.
Yeah, and the one thing we did notice is they weren't catching a lot of fish, but the fish that they were catching, big fish.
Folks, these guys have practiced in the rain and the wind. This morning, bluebird skies completely changes everything. They had their areas, they had a lot of confidence in those areas, but they were sticking to them. Aaron Martin, he got a little nervous. While we were there, he said, Harold, I got to go. I got some smallmouth right out there. I got to go. What happened?
Hey, he went out there and he caught largemouth.
Absolutely, on his smallmouth spot. And two good ones, real good ones.
Yeah, put him back in the hunt. He was really struggling this morning. He thought he could go in, had a great practice. You know, he even mentioned that he had 100 bites. 100 bites, Harold.
Absolutely. Aaron, this morning, folks, it was funny. While he was struggling in the shallow water, he was talking to himself, 90 miles an hour. He gets out there deep. He catches two good largemouth. He don't say nothing. He's quiet as a pin.
Yeah, we ran into Fred Rabanus, you know, the guy that won the last major. Same thing with him, Harold. He's not catching a lot of fish, but, man, the fish he's catching, big fish.
Right. Fred said he had 3 fish, real good fish, 1 in the 4-pound range and 2 more real close to it. Fred fishing the same general area as these other guys, but fishing completely different.
Yeah,
and we're not going to tell you how.
No, not going to say a word. Anyway, we hope you guys enjoy this midday report. We're going to do it every day. We're getting ready for the weigh-in. We just got off the water. We got cars going by. Things are crazy. Starting to cloud up a little bit, Harold. Yep. The wind's picked up. You know, it actually died down there for a little bit, but we got to get ready for the weigh-in now. You're going to give some analysis after these guys bring their fish in.
To stay with us, partners. We're going to have a good show. I guarantee you. These guys are fixing to really start nailing these fish. We're on Champlain, loaded with smallmouth and largemouth. It's going to be a good day.
We're going to see how the guys that went south did today at the weigh-in, aren't we?
They're going to kill them. They're going to kill them.
All right.
Without a doubt.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Harold, a lot of guys still have a shot at this thing, including Edwin.
Yes, Mark, it's wide open. I mean, you got this many good anglers, this good of a fishery. You know, weather's going to change a little bit, but every one of the fishermen, with very few exceptions, said that their practice was way better than what they did today. These fish do like they did in practice, it's going to go up.
All right, we'll see what happens. Right now, 50th place, 14 pounds, 14 ounces. Man, they caught them.
They did. They had 3-pound average just to get a check. That's phenomenal. I guarantee you anywhere, that's phenomenal. But it may get better.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we hope you enjoy Wide Open with the legend and myself. We'll be back tomorrow to give you a midday report. Everybody, stay tuned.
See ya.
Well, that was just a little bit look back, a little special edition show. What's up, Mark?
What's happening?
Some news in the fishing world there. Harold Allen, our longtime associate, I guess he was my coworker for those years at Wide Open, and he was your co-host of the Wide Open, is member of the Hemphill Gang, member of the 2015 inductee into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Has been battling cancer for the last 3 years and is not doing well right now. But I was able to talk to Harold yesterday. Yesterday, I talked to Harold, Mark, still sharp as a tack. So while he's hanging out on the recliner, we thought, let's do a throwback show. Maybe Harold will listen to it, and we'll just reminisce about some of the old school days of Wide Open, how you got Harold involved in it, some of our stories that we remember about him, and obviously preface this with this was just a small chapter in Harold's life outside of 60 plus years of fishing around it. But man, we got some great stories for Harold and wanted to share those and kind of talk about them and reminisce about some of the old Bass Zone Wide Open on location tournament coverage days. I don't really know how else to kind of open the show, Mark.
No, that's all good. And I've reached out to Harold. I've tried to contact Harold. I have been unable to do that. But in your discussion with his daughter yesterday, there is a really good chance that he is going to either watch this live or watch the replay. And I hope he gets the opportunity to do that, because the amount of influence that Harold had on what we were trying to accomplish that nobody else had done before, he was instrumental in doing what we did, and the success that we had with the way that the legend could only do it, describe it, say it, cover it. And there was one word I was actually, I was thinking about Harold last night, and I don't think the newer fans and anglers really understand the amount of respect that Harold had amongst all of the Elite Series anglers when we were out there covering the Elite Series. It was insane, the respect that everybody from KVD to Kelly Jordan to Aaron Martins to all the guys that were out there. Harold was a master at really being able to communicate and respect, and that whole situation was reversed too with the way that the anglers respected Harold. And Harold was bold. That's another adjective. He was very bold.
Trust me, he's still bold, Mark. When I talked to him, he was still busting my balls yesterday when I chatted with him, because he had since retired from the tournament fishing, discovered the joys of crappie fishing on Toledo Bend, and then was basically a full-time crappie guide. I ran into him at an open a couple years ago, probably 4 years ago now, and he was buying 2 pounds of shiners and had 6 people in a pontoon boat outside and said, "Matthew, I would have never bass fished if I knew how much money was in crappie guiding."
Yeah. He very, very, very special and very instrumental in the direction that we took what we were trying to accomplish with Wide Open and covering the Elite Series, and really had an influence on a lot of the direction that I went. But his ability to describe the action and his ability to cover the sport was like nothing I'd ever seen. And I'll never forget, Darren Cole was working at Skeeter at the time, and Darren still involved in the industry a little bit. I think he's working for who is he working for? G3. I think he's working for G3 now, but still involved in the Hall of Fame. And at the time, Darren was in charge of the marketing and the pro staff at Skeeter. And I was sitting in Darren Cole's office, and I said, "Man, I got this idea." I said, "What if we bring in Harold Allen to be like the color commentary guy for what we're trying to do with the Elite Series?" And Darren said, "Man, that would be a great idea." I said, "Well, do you think he would do it?" And Darren, he kind of looked around a little bit and he goes, yeah, I think he'd do it. And from the very first show that we did to the very last show that we did, the memories that took place in between there, he did not miss a beat. And some of the post-game shows were epic. And I'm sure we're going to get into a few of those stories. But I cannot thank you enough, Harold, if you're watching, for the influence that you had on me, not just in fishing, but in life, and what you taught me. And, even though in your old school ways, those old school ways really taught me a lot about life, about responsibility, about accountability, and taught me how to have a little fun every now and then. Because, man, we had some fun, Matthew.
Yeah, definitely. So if you haven't followed Bass Zone for the past 25 years, in 30 seconds, basically, you started the Bass Zone back in the late 90s. And when you retired from your job at UPS in 2005, you wanted to cover professional fishing full time with a website called the Bass Zone, and that there, no live coverage, nothing. You would get photo gallery. It was the ESPN Outdoor Days, whatnot. So that basically evolved into a daily on location show. So you'd travel to every single Elite Series stop. That's when the Elite Series kicked off in 2006 with the inaugural season of the Elite Series. You went to every single stop, and you would do on location coverage from it. And then Harold came on board during that time. So 2006, the end of 2006, 2007, all the way through like 2013, 14, I believe. So about an 8-year period where we went to every single Elite Series stop. We were on the water for every single day of coverage. We did a post-game show every single night, a morning show every single morning, and a midday update every single day. So it was you and Harold for the first year, and then I came on in 2007, 2008, and then we went to every single one and did those live shows. So you did hundreds of shows with Harold, and I was on the water with him for, if there's 10 tournaments a year times 4 days, that's 40 days times 8 years. That's
a lot.
It's a lot of days that I got on the water with Harold. And basically he would have a Skeeter. We would have, because we were sponsored by Skeeter at the time, would have his boat or your boat from Skeeter, and we mainly his. He liked,
or a Skeeter team guy,
or a Skeeter team guy. Yeah. And then we'd be out on the water. So I'd be on the water with Harold from 6 a.m. until 2 p.m. And then we would get off, get ready, and then you would do the pregame show with him and then the postgame show with him in the evening. So we traveled from California. You went to California with him for that. California to Florida to Texas to New York and everywhere in between on that. And this was kind of Harold was still fishing Bass Champs, Texas Team Trail, all that stuff that was going on there. He was jumping in a couple of opens still, but this was after his 27-year career on the Bassmaster Tour. So it was and I think it was more of a deal where he Skeeter kind of hired him and said, you know, like you said with Darren Cole, where you said you guys would be a great fit. And before that, before this, you knew who he was, had talked to him a little bit, but really didn't know Harold that well.
I really didn't. And that was part of the fun, Matt, was getting to know the guy and seeing how he rolled and seeing how he responded to certain situations. And just he was very defined in his ways. And I'm not talking about just on the water, I'm talking off the water too. Harold loved to have a great time. And some of the Haroldisms that he came up with, you know, the whole wide open thing, that actually came from Harold. Okay.
And the show was called Wide Open. Every night it'd be Wide Open. The Bass Zone presents Wide Open with Mark Jeffries and Harold Allen.
Yeah, and the whole wide open thing came from Harold, because every time you'd ask Harold or somebody would walk up to him and go, "Harold, how you doing, man?" "Man, I'm just running wide open."
Yeah.
That was always his response. So I was like, hey, that's the perfect name for the show right there. It's going to be called Wide Open. And he loved it. And I think the fans and the interaction that he had with the fans that were at these events when we were doing the shows, Harold during that period of time really became he became a star. He did. I mean, people loved the legend. And the whole name, the legend, that actually came from we were just talking one day, and he was rattling off some stuff, and I go, "Dude," I go, "you're a legend." I said, we're just going to start calling you the legend. That's how that whole thing originated. And during that period of time, there were very few people that he was around constantly. They called him Harold. Everybody called him Legend. The legend.
Yeah. And obviously he had the legendary ties with the Hemp Hill gang that went back to the 1970s, the legendary group of guides on Toledo Bend. You can read about that with Tommy Martin and Larry Nixon and John Hall, John Torrey, and all those guys who kind of pioneered a lot of the deep structure fishing, a lot of the worm fishing, a lot of the offshore fishing on Toledo Bend. And I got to hear some of those stories from Harold back in the day. I mean, I remember when he would talk to you, he'd be like, there would be like days where they would just tie their boats up basically like in a raft at the end of the day, and guides, all those guys would be back. I mean, imagine like you roll up to the boat ramp and it's just like Tommy Martin, Larry Nixon, and Harold Allen.
That's crazy.
Guys just sitting there. And he said one of us would be responsible for the iced tea, wink, wink. And after the clients would leave, they would have their boats tied up. They'd be getting ready for the next day, and then they would just BS into the night. And then they'd wake up the next morning and their clients would be there, and they'd take them out and go fish again. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's one of the things that Harold said, which is which I 100% can believe.
Yeah, I it's funny because some of the technology challenges that we had in the early years, Matt, I saw somebody ask the question, how did you upload content and all that? Listen, Harold stood away from that. All right. There were days and nights that I was up all night long, and I'd be sitting there and I'd be frustrated and trying to do this and trying to upload that and format this. And he just kind of look at me and he go, well, dude, he goes, we'll hit it about 5:30, and off to bed he went. He wanted nothing to do with the technology stuff. And quite honestly, that's not what his forte was. His forte was describing the action and really understanding what these guys were doing.
It was. He had the Bassmaster Open win. He's a member of the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. I think the last kind of real tour that he fished was that PAA series.
Yeah.
And I remember back when the PAA that he was still fishing, but man, he loves soaking a worm. Like Harold loves, like I fish with them. Like you can see in the background right there, that second one up above that's Harold and I. And that was at there we go. Right there. That was at Pickwick Lake when we had the 1-on-1 versus Overstreet and the parking lot flooded. Were you there for that?
Yeah.
Overstreet, legendary photographer for bass, had been talking some smoke to Harold, and Harold was talking some smoke back to Overstreet, friendly banter, and the tournament was over. And was it Rob Russo and Overstreet, or who was fishing with Overstreet? Overstreet had someone with him, and they had a boat there, and then Harold had his boat there, and we decided to stick around an extra day and have a derby, just a bragging rights derby on Pickwick, but we didn't know they were going to open up every single gate on Pickwick following that tournament.
Yeah.
And the water started coming up, and I remember we were out there and we were crushing them on a V&M pork pin with a lead weight. I was using all of Harold's stuff, and Overstreet, you guys were calling going, hey, the water's like coming up into the parking lot. Screw this tournament. We need to get out of here. And Harold refused to leave because he thought it was a ploy to get us off of the fish. So we stayed the whole time and then had to figure out how to load his boat. We loaded his boat in a ditch off of the parking lot because it was the only thing you could get to the ramp because you couldn't get to it. I mean, that was him. Like when he wasn't going to come off the water until he knew he had Overstreet beat for bragging rights.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Several stories that we want to talk about. I want you to tell everybody about the hook story. Do you remember the hook story?
The Rusty Hook story?
Yeah.
So big slack lot. Like if you watch him, if you've watched Harold set the hook, and I know he was on Zona Show, and I think in Zona Show they put the like the fireworks sound effect to it.
Yeah.
Harold sets the hook like a man possessed, and he had the butt
Godzilla
seat.
Man.
Like he has the butt seat, and the butt seat in his boats always have like the lean in the butt seats where it's like wallowed out, and it's not because he's up there in the waves, it's because of the momentum from setting the hook.
Yeah.
And we were fishing on Gunnersville one time, and I'd jumped off like 2 or 3 fish. 6-inch V&M pork pin. It's the only thing he let me through when I was with him. It's literally the only thing he would let me through. He didn't have much else in the boat. Carolina rig, some rusty plugs. And I said, Harold, I said, can I like get a new hook? Like this one's rusty. And he just looked at me and he goes, Matthew, just set the hook harder. I've never had anybody say that. He said, just set the hook harder.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always appreciated was he is a stickler for it, always has been, and I think that's kind of carried over into what we did with Bass Zone and then BTL after, and still is always showing up on time, and regardless of the bad decisions you had made the previous night, being ready to work and bringing your A game. Yeah. And Harold has always brought his A game, and for those 8-9 years he was at every single show, always had the stats, always talked to the people, and always did it the right way.
Yeah. without a doubt. And folks, you have to remember too, we were the only ones out there from an independent standpoint at the time. I mean, there was a 4 or 5 year run that there was us and then it turned into maybe 1 or 2 other people. And then what was the guy's name? His last name was Cox.
Doug
Cox was out there for a little while. And then it just started to blossom a little bit. But Harold was really the first guy to do that from an independent standpoint and was just magnificent at describing the action. Now, quick story I have. The event that took place at Falcon Lake.
Yeah, I wasn't there for this one. This one was good. So
me and Harold are on the water and we're watching Paul Elias and Ish Monroe for basically 3.5 days. And obviously that was the event where Paul broke the record and Ish was really close and they got into it a little bit. I mean, we were like the only boat besides the camera boat that was around this whole deal. And Harold kept bugging me. He goes, we need to stay an extra day. We need to stay an extra day. I got to come back. We got to come back here. We got to see what this is all about. I was like, all right, Harold. So, Paul went on to do what he did and set the record, and we stayed an extra day. So we go back to the foundation area on Falcon where Ish and Paul were fishing. And take one guess what I was throwing, Matt.
Carolina rig.
A Carolina rig. All right. Take one guess as to what Harold was using.
Texas rigged worm.
That's it. Okay. Okay. He threw that worm probably for 2 hours. And meanwhile, the only time that I ever dominated Harold Allen, and he was furious. I mean, livid, because I was catching him on a Carolina rig, and Harold refused to throw a Carolina rig. And I was catching
after my own heart
and 7s. I caught an 8.5. I mean, I was just lighting them up, and Harold was back there catching 1.5 pound, 2 pound, 3 pounder, 2.5 pounder. And I will never forget. All right. I'm up there dragging. And the next thing I know, he taps me on the back of my shoulder and he goes with some very respectable 4-letter words. Give me one of them, blah, blah, blah.
Carolina
rigs. It actually got to the point where Harold Allen gave up his worm and started to throw a Carolina rig. And you know what happened about 2 or 3 casts?
He caught a big one.
He caught an 8.5. He caught an 8.5, and he just smiled at me. But it took him forever to give up that worm because, for those that don't really know the history with Harold, it's been discussed, but he was probably one of the top 3 worm fishermen in the world
for decades.
For decades. Just, but to see him and him tap me on the shoulder was crazy. 3/16
ounce to 1/4 ounce lead. He started out with mono and then went to, in his later years, I think he's probably still throwing vicious fluorocarbon. And no peg on it, and just that 6-inch worm, and just methodical. And the way he had the old guide hands and would just worm that worm through it. I did find the 1-minute clip from his Mark Zona show, so we can see
with the fireworks.
Yeah, there's no audio. I'm not going to do the audio, but you could get a feel for the hook sets of Harold Allen here. Well, there we go.
Oh, there it is.
The boom. See how he leans back on that hook set, and they're doing Texas rigged lizards in this one.
Yeah.
But here, this is a good one. Boom. And that was either on Rayburn or Toledo Bend right there.
Probably
they
Toledo.
Did that show. Yeah, that was a fantastic show. Oh yeah, I forgot he was a Carrot Sticks guy for a while.
Yeah. The Orange Ride.
back in the day. But if you get a chance to watch that show, that's an old school show there.
You know, I mentioned it earlier, Matt. You know, people loved Harold, and one of the coolest things that we did, and once again, this was the first time that this ever took place. I would always scout out a like sports bar or restaurant or someplace where we would have the post-game show, just like what they did in all other sports. Once an event concluded, there would be some type of post-game show. Well, the venues that we had, by halfway through the show, the entire crowd that was there was wanting to buy beverages for Harold.
Oh, and he let him. He would find waiters, waitresses, cooks, regulars, college students, whoever was there, and they would come back every single night, and there would be 30, 40, 50 people there, and Harold would be drinking with them, hanging out, telling stories in between doing the live stuff.
He was a man of entertainment just simply by being himself. And he was such a great addition to what we were trying to accomplish. But hey man, he kind of pushed his way into some situations that really helped us out, that me and you just kind of stood back and go, now let him take care of this.
Yeah, that was the thing. So at the
time, this covered.
At the time, the on location coverage, there wasn't live, there wasn't anything. So you were literally had a pass, and there was just some people from the newspaper stuff, and you'd get the standard, I went out, basically a stage interview with him. Yeah. But Harold, we gave Harold a recorder. And remember, it was my job to make sure that the recorder was on and working.
Yeah.
And, he would go up to Denny Brower, who he'd fished against for 25 years.
Tommy Biffle,
Zell Rowland, Guy Eaker, all these guys, Jay Yellis, and whoever it was, wherever we were covering, and I think Yellis was at FLW at that point, but they would talk to him and he would have it recorded. And that was how the stories and the baits and the real stories behind it, like those guys would talk to Harold, because Harold took this job just as serious as he did, when he was on the water competing against him. But it really allowed the Bass Zone, which turned into BTL and Bass Talk Live, to have some legitimacy behind it, with Harold giving all of the information, because he had been on Champlain when it was windy. He had fished the Rim Canal on Okeechobee. He had made the run on Lake Gunnersville. He had done all of the things that these guys were talking about, and then was on the water watching it and sharing it. So I think a big part of the whole brand has to do with the validity and how Harold Allen covered it during that time that he worked for you. Now, he also, the one story I remember is when he made you wire him money. He made you wire him a reimbursement check like that day. Like you had to leave your house, go to the 7-Eleven and wire him money, because one of his favorite sayings also was, "It's just business."
It's just business. Yeah. It wasn't 7-Eleven. It was a bank.
How did that come about?
I just messed up. I messed up, and there was some confusion as who was going to reimburse him, whether it was a Skeeter reimbursement through Darren Cole, or whether I need to reimburse him for this. And it was just a misunderstanding, but it didn't matter because it was just business, as Harold said. But no, man, we got him taken care of. I want to say this also. One of the most iconic moments in this sport from the Bassmaster Classic was what? I want to see if you get this. And Harold was actually a part of this. Do you know what it was, Matt?
You have to give me a little bit more preface.
The guy that ended up winning the Classic this year was going to quit. He was going to quit after the Bassmaster Classic.
Oh, Ike and Ellie?
Yeah. Do you remember what happened when Ike won that classic? Who did he outlast with that one last cast?
Outlast with that one.
It was Harold.
Oh yeah, it was.
Harold was in the thick of things that classic.
Yeah, in the Delta.
Yeah. Yes. And I can remember vividly one of the things that we did with Harold with the help of Skeeter is Harold and we were the first ones to broadcast live from the classic outdoor show. And this was after his performance where he almost won the Bassmaster Classic. And we were sitting there in between, and he turned and he looked at me and he goes, Marcus, he goes, I just want you to know this is really hard for me to do. I go, what do you mean? He goes, when you almost win the Classic, to be sitting here talking about it and not fishing in it, that's one of the toughest things I've had to do. And he truly was sincere, because how many opportunities do you get to win the Bassmaster Classic? And with all the stories that are going around and people, reflecting back on Harold's life, I think that one defining moment that wasn't victory was still at the top of his list of memories, not in a bad way. I just think to be that close to winning the Bassmaster Classic, it just doesn't happen. And that ate at him. It really did. I mean, that was not the only time that he would bring up that whole situation. And I will never forget the video that was shown where Harold rarely took his hat off, but when, Ike and Ellie ended up winning, he took his hat off and he kind of ducked his head down, and it was just that moment of, man, I was that close. Close.
And he had 3 top 5 finishes in the Classic throughout the years and finished. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. One of the things that you realize, so when you're on the water and you're, I've got, you can't see him here, but I've got a ton of like press badges and things like that. When you're covering on the water, is you don't, interfere with the anglers whatsoever. And but Harold, also having been a tournament angler, when we were on the water, I remember specifically several times where the guys would trust Harold. So Harold would say, hey, we're doing coverage. Where are you going to start? And they wouldn't tell. And this was days 2, 3. No one else was out there. You're talking top secret stuff, whatever. But they would tell Harold, here's where I'm going to be, whatever. And we would get on the water before they would get there, so that our first live segment would be as soon as everything got going and got live. So a lot of times it would be 30, 40, 50 minutes after takeoff. So if takeoff was at 7, we'd be there at the spot waiting on them at 7 to shoot photos, to do the live stuff. And then, they would have to do their takeoff. They'd have to run. So it might be 8, 8:15. Well, on days 2 and 3, before they had the cameras in the boats, for the final days and things like that, sometimes there would be locals who had been following the guys over the first couple days of the tournament, and they would just be thrashing the water before the guys got there. And me, Mark, I am a non-confrontational individual.
Yeah.
And Harold took it upon himself multiple occasions to idle right up to a boat and go, hey, partner, I know you're fishing here because so-and-so has fished here the last 2 days. Why don't you give it a rest? And the guy would just be like, wait, who are you? Like, what's your deal? And he's like, you need to go on and get on. This isn't your water. And he would do that on his own volition without anybody telling him, just to take care. And it didn't matter who it was.
Yeah.
Out of everybody on the Elite Series, there's only one guy that Harold wouldn't interview. And anytime he was at the top, he'd hand me the recorder and he'd say, it's all you, Matthew. And other than that, he was good with all of them. We were doing it, but I learned so much about interviewing people, about respect, about when to approach anglers. Like Harold was the guy that I watched, I was 21, 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
Actually I started when I was 23. So 23 to 29. Like I didn't know, like you don't just roll up to a guy after he loses a tournament winning fish, put a mic in his face and say, hey, tell us about how you just lost the one chance you've had in the last 15 years and everything's fallen apart. Like he was so good about respecting the anglers because he was an angler, how to approach them, what to ask them, how to navigate an interview, when to leave guys alone, when to let them do their own things, what questions not to ask, because he had lived it. And I don't think that the Bass Zone would have gotten any as much as the respect or the understanding of it has, is because there were times when Harold was like, not right now. Give that guy time. Let him do that. And there's only a handful of guys who totally understand that.
Yeah, I get it. You know, live has changed the way that the fans can see how the pros respond to pressure, to agony, to elation, you know. But there's still one thing that the fan really doesn't get to see. And you and I, Matt, we got to see that. We got to witness that. And what I'm talking about is like when somebody loses a tournament, when they lost a fish, or, you know, they did everything they could, but they ended up losing by, 6 ounces or whatever. That time that takes place when BASS is breaking down their set and, everybody's kind of gone. And then here comes Harold and I, or all three of us, or even just Harold by himself. And he walks up to a Tommy Biffle, and you get to hear Tommy open up to Harold in a way that just Tommy would never have opened up to anybody else. Mm-hmm. And really got that insight, because that's how much trust that the guys that were out there on the Elite Series trusted Harold.
And neither of us, like, we know Harold now. We don't know Harold like in this picture back when he was fishing and all that. I mean, I would imagine this is, prime Hemphill Gang days. This is when he just finished second in the Bassmaster Classic by less than a pound. So we're talking about the legend Harold for those 10 years that he was very instrumental for that. But like I said, I think I probably would have been intimidated by Harold in his earlier days, just based on what I've hung out with him for the 10 years.
He, another thing is the way that it worked, for the first 2-3 years is guys would come off the stage, and then you would have the BASS communications people that Doug Grassian had, whoever that was. Mm-hmm. Then you'd have maybe a JM person, and then you'd have, maybe a local person there. And then there would be us. But what ended up happening was, if Harold was talking to somebody else and he didn't get a chance to talk to this person over here while everybody was there, when Harold approached that group, everybody just stopped. And they go, "What do you need, Harold?" Mm-hmm. "Harold, you got a question?" I mean, that's how much respect that Harold had. Now, when it didn't happen that place, Harold had an art at taking over the interview without being demanding. In other words, that respect factor, they just kind of looked around and they were like, "Okay, Harold's here. All right, go ahead, Harold." That's how good he was, and that's how respectful he was. He's one of the few individuals, Matt, and hopefully you will agree with this, that had a combination of skill and just God-given ability on the water as an angler, but at the same time was one of the best human beings that you could possibly be off the water, from that engagement that took place with the fans.
I agree 100%.
It's just, he was off the charts.
I would venture to say, if you go to Harold's house right now, you may have to look around for it, but there is probably a chart in some drawer that is handwritten that is the top speed of every Skeeter boat that he has ever owned, how it was set up, and what he did. He got one during one of the years because he was on the Skeeter team. He's diehard Skeeter.
Yeah.
He got one year, and it wasn't as fast as he thought it should be. His Skeeter Yamaha combo was only running like 70.4, and according to his calculations, it should be running about 71. And he had a notepad, and he spent the first 2 tournaments of the year. This is no joke. If Harold's listened to this, he will vouch for this, because it kind of got in the way of some BTO work at times. He would wait at the weigh-in for the first couple tournaments once he had his, and it was as dialed in as he could get it, and he thought it was 1.5 miles slower than it should be. and he went to, because they all had the same model, right? You know, there would either be the F or the, what was it back then? The I class or the ZX. Or,
FX or something.
Would go like walk up to Todd Faircloth and be like, Todd, do you feel like your boat's set up good? Yeah. What's your top speed that you're getting? No, what's that in the chop? What's that on that? And he made a list of every single Skeeter Yamaha Pro that had the model that he just got, how their boat was set up, and the top speed that they were getting wide open to see if his was slower than all the other Skeeter guys, and if he needed to do something about it, if he had gotten one that maybe just wasn't as fast as it should be, so he could get an extra mile and a half out of it. He was obsessed with speed.
Yeah.
Every time we covered a tournament, every time we were on the water, he ran it like he stole it. There was no cruising with Harold Allen. It was legitimately trimmed out, wide open, with me with a tough book, a camera, that holding my hat, going, Harold, Harold, Harold. And Harold just over there, just driving the Skeeter.
Hey, he always got the best room too. You notice that we always took care of Harold, the VRBOs that we stayed in, the rental houses. We always had to make sure that we took care of the legend. And, you know, it's been a while since we've been down that road. And, when things happen like this, you reminisce a lot, but, that is a period of my life that I am grateful, Harold, for what you did. And I'm grateful what you did for the sport, because what you did was, you kind of created a monster. And, there are people out there that I know that cross paths with you, that you have made their life better. And, you know, one of the posts that I made, I said, you know, your life rocked, and the life that you lived. I know there's a zillion people out there that would trade places with you. So, I just hope that grace is with you and that you can enjoy, the last few casts that you have with your family, and realize that there are thousands and thousands of people out there that care about you, man. And thank you for everything that you've done for this sport, for me and Matt. And man, there's only one Harold Allen, Matthew.
Absolutely. And I also realized that to me, Harold is a guy who's very influential in my career. For Harold, I was just a guy in my 20s who didn't know what the hell he was doing, that Harold got stuck with to cover all this and spend all these days of the boat for a Skeeter paycheck. So, I'm under no illusions that I had any impact on Harold Allen, but very meaningful to me. And I'll say this more so, Harold didn't really teach me much about actual fishing. I do remember one college tournament, because I was in college at the time when I did it, and I was fishing with Chip Porcher, who went on to fish the Elite Series. You saw him at my wedding and stuff, and we were fishing Rayburn in a college event. Neither of us had ever been there, and I said, well, I work with Harold Allen. Harold knows Rayburn. I said, I'll call Harold, and Harold will tell us what we should do. Harold's advice, quote, fish stumps. So I said, fantastic. He said, fish stumps in creeks and coves. Cool. That narrowed it down even more. We launched the boat on Rayburn. We start driving, and I look at Chip and I said, I should have known better. Harold was notoriously tight-lipped for what he found. Do you remember on Toledo Bend when he refused to cover anybody above the bridge?
Yeah.
Because that was Harold's stomping grounds, and he didn't want anybody who was watching Bass Zone to either tell on a picture or at any video where anywhere above the bridge, because it wasn't mapped at that point, someone might have been fishing. There was someone out in the middle that Harold made sure he knew who it was, and then confronted him at the weigh-in afterwards, asking who gave him the waypoint to that offshore hump in the middle of the timber forest above the bridge, because that was his spot, and there are only 3 people on earth that knew about that hump.
Yeah.
That dude almost was like in tears trying to explain to Harold that he had been running the boat lane, looked over and saw a bunch of fish busting in the middle of the timber, picked his way through, idled it, and he found it because those fish were eating big gizzard shad blowing up, and that none of Harold's trusted confidants had broken the bond of trust by giving him that waypoint.
Yeah. That was Harold.
Yeah.
That was Harold. And I don't know if he still had the Suburban. Does he still have the Suburban?
I don't know if he does.
That was his pride and joy, man. He loved that. He loved that truck, and was just it was a cool truck.
Remember
really
in New York when he got all of his knives taken away at the airport security checkpoint?
Oh my gosh.
Well, that might have been
Yeah.
that was that tournament that we opened the show with at Champlain.
I think it was.
And he insisted once you got the rental car that we went to Walmart so he could purchase a new array of knives to carry on him for his own personal protection.
I know, and I told him, I'm like, dude, what are you going to do to get him back? No.
He just needed him for that week because we were in New York. Yeah. Granted, upstate New York, Lake Champlain, but still.
But when we went through security, I knew something was wrong, man. He was pissed. He was not happy. Hey, took my knives. Took my knives, man.
Mark,
like, dude, you can't take
Mark, I need you to go to the Walmart. I need to pick a few things up. And it was like a selection of knives. It wasn't just like a small pocket knife. It was like a selection of knives that he would keep at the ready.
Yeah. Yeah. He was,
So,
man,
there's
he was
a
cool.
number of people have posted stuff. Like I said, Harold, I talked to him yesterday. Sounded like he was in good spirits. He was eating, he was watching TV. And like I said, he even took a shot at me at the end, but also still just give him a little shot of energy. If you have a Harold Allen story, I know Randy Block has posted some stuff. Some other guys have. If you want to, below the show, the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame did. If you've got a Harold Allen story, memory, anything like that, feel free to leave it below. But I just thought I'd get you on here, and I've been meaning to do kind of like a throwback, kind of reminiscent show. Where do you stand on the recovery of the archival tapes from 2006 on, Mark?
Yeah, we're working on that. I mean, I have a Rubbermaid tub full of mini DV tapes that I'm converting to digital. So in the coming months, you will actually have some retro stuff that will feature what we did from 2006 all the way through
2017.
Yeah.
That was the last year, 2006 through 17. And then Harold was there the very first year, 2006, correct?
He was not. He
was not. So it started in 7.
He came on in 7.
Okay. So he was there 2007 to 2013, 12, 13, like somewhere around there.
Yeah.
7, 8 years.
Yeah, he was. So we'll I'm continuing to work on that, getting some of the arc. I know somebody made a comment, hey, do you have more of those clips? And yeah, I mean, I've got a Rubbermaid.
We'll put a bunch out. Guess where I drove past. So I went to Gunnersville. I took a different route. I ended up having to go through Decatur, Alabama, Mark. Crossed over Wheeler Lake.
Okay.
Do you have any idea? Think back to some of the wildest wide open days. Do you have any idea what
the biker bar?
Mooresville Bar and Grill.
That was one of the epic shows, man. The crowd was going nuts. I mean, insane. That was probably the craziest show that we did.
Yeah. Harold, it was a biker it was the week that like the kids had returned to college, I think, when Tommy Biffle won.
Yeah.
And Harold had several hundred bikers and college students whipped into a frenzy when Tommy Biffle walked into the building. Harold was like standing on the chair conducting it when Tommy walked in with the trophy, and the place blew the roof off of the place.
Folks, this place was wall-to-wall people. I mean, jam-packed. And Tommy, I've never seen Tommy smile, more than one time probably. And Tommy was smiling a little bit then. Harold had the crowd in a frenzy.
Yeah. I saw Tommy smile some more, but I've also been crappie fishing with Tommy Biffle. Crappie fishing makes Tommy Biffle happy.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
So
Jack
great
and
stuff,
water.
man.
Jack and water. I should have had a Jack and water for this show.
We might have to have a toast because that was the other thing that he did, and hopefully he taught you this. The one thing that Harold did, he took care of the crew in the boatyard.
Yep. He knew what everybody drank, what everybody ate, everybody's names, their family, and every single day when we got off the water, even though the Skeeter Yamaha was in immaculate condition, we'd roll by the service yard and he would chat with the fellas for 10 or 15 minutes.
And took care of them too.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew how to take care of people, and it's one of those things that's pretty old school though. It goes, Marcus, you take care of people, they'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And he's right.
Yeah.
And he took care of those people. So man, great stuff, good stories. I was
thinking of you, Harold, if you're listening to this, and I know for me meant a lot. Still mean a lot, and I know that very instrumental for Mark as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. One final quick thought. The post-game show at Syracuse or at Oneida with Chad the Iceman Griffin was probably the number 2 show.
Oh, when he got into the fight with the person over, he got into a legitimate argument with a local over whether it is Oneida Lake or Lake Oneida.
Heated argument
at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
After the bar. Well, the other thing that Harold managed to do was he would without fail somehow know the owner, manager, whoever was on duty. So when everything closed down, the manager was like, "Oh, they're good."
Yeah.
And so we would never have to leave the place. And Harold would never want to leave the place. And we'd have to be on the water at 6 a.m. And Harold would be like eating cheese curds, drinking Jack with the bar owner.
I know. Good.
Oh, that was I do remember that.
Yeah.
Because that was also the tournament where we were all 3 in the car and we had to talk the Dick's Sporting Goods, was it? Into opening up after they had closed so we could get the Excalibur Pop R that Chad Griffin had won on so we could show it on the show. Literally, like,
I pounded on the door.
Got them to open up a closed chain sporting goods store.
Yeah. Good memories, man. All right. Matthew, thank you. And once again, I really hope that the legend gets an opportunity to watch this show if he couldn't watch it live. But the other thing, people, I know you have a lot of young fans out there, a lot of people that may not know who Harold Allen is. Take the time and go back and do a little research on the guy, because he was a master at the Worm and the history. I know we have talked several times and did talk several times about doing it 20 feet deep on the Hemphill gang. And that never came to fruition.
Yeah, Bassmaster recently did some things on him. Yeah, on the cast.
Yeah.
It was really good.
It was, some of the greatest anglers to grow up and really
still the greatest.
perform. Yeah, in that era.
There's still a handful of them around. I wouldn't want to go up against any of them.
All right, man. What else going on with you, Matthew? Anything?
No, that's it. We've had a lot of shows recently, a lot of really good shows to go back, a lot of history of the sport in the shows. We'll continue to do new cutting edge stuff while looking back on the history of the sport. That's one of the unique and cool things about this is you got guys who competed in the first Bass tournament, guys who were in the first Bassmaster Classic, guys who were the foundation in the original, and in a lot of other stick and ball sports. You can't go talk to a Ty Cobb or a Babe Ruth. And you can still do that in bass fishing.
Yeah. Hey, I haven't, and I'm going to do it now, even though it may or may not be appropriate. I'm just going to say, I want to say thanks for letting me fish with you at the Table Rock event that we did for St. Jude. That was a blast. I haven't fished a tournament in years, and I know it wasn't a quote unquote, big time tournament or anything.
Oh, I
like
took it
that.
serious.
We did, and I had not dragged a tube around and caught smallmouth maybe for 10, 15 years.
You
So
caught a bunch too.
I did. It was a blast.
It had to be fun.
It was.
We merged
it was
forward-facing sonar with some of the oldest Ozark techniques, and we both contributed to our 29th place satchel.
Yeah. So it was good. Dude, I will say this too real quick. We have been wearing out the smallmouth at a lake that I never thought I'd catch this many smallmouth at in the month of June.
Sweet.
It's insane. And I sent a picture to Frank because you know what we're catching them on?
Crankbaits.
Yeah.
I think you can say the name of the lake. It's not like it's a secret pond.
Well, no, I mean everybody knows Texoma. the smallmouth fish in there is off the chart all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And love cranking, man. Love doing that. And Frank has helped me out a ton with some of the stuff that we're doing with crankbaits and stuff like that. So no, man, thanks for having me on. And I know I kind of strayed from the core, but Harold, thank you, man. Love you. And enjoy the family. And we will see you soon someday, man.
There you go. All right. I think I'll just end it like that. All right. That's been a special edition of BTL. Shoot over, leave a comment. Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, Randy Block, a bunch of people posted some stuff for Harold. I know he's reading them. I know he's listening to them. Like I said, I just talked to him. He's the same old Harold Allen, but in need of maybe hearing a good story or two in the next day.
Yeah.
And I also know his family appreciates it too. Cantankerous and legendary.
Yes.
We'll talk to everyone later. See ya.
See ya.